Welcome back to Fact Bloom Insights. On the night of October 8, 1871, a catastrophe unfolded in northeastern Wisconsin that would forever alter the course of American history, though few outside its immediate path would truly grasp its magnitude. The Peshtigo Fire erupted with a ferocity that was unprecedented, consuming entire towns, snuffing out over 1,500 lives, and scorching an astonishing 1.2 million acres of land. While the Great Chicago Fire blazed on that same night, capturing attention with its destruction of a major city and claiming roughly 250 lives across 2,000 acres, the Peshtigo Fire was, and remains, the deadliest wildfire in United States history. Yet, curiously, it remains overshadowed, a tragic event half remembered in the shadow of Chicago's more famous inferno. What made the Peshtigo Fire so devastating? To understand, we need to piece together the perfect storm of conditions that led up to that night. The region had been suffering from a prolonged drought, turning the forests and fields into tinder. Settlers and loggers, eager to clear land for farming and development, relied on slash-and-burn techniques, leaving piles of dry debris scattered throughout the landscape. On that fateful evening, a cold front swept through, bringing winds that reached extraordinary speeds, over 110 miles per hour in some places. The stage was set for disaster.
When the fire broke out, it wasn't just a simple blaze. It was a firestorm. Imagine flames so intense and concentrated that they create their own wind, a swirling tornado of fire that moves faster than anyone can run, incinerating everything in its path. Survivors described the sky as a wall of flame, embers raining down like fiery hail, and the sound of the inferno as a deafening roar. It was not just homes that burned, but entire communities. Men, women, and children fled toward rivers, some surviving only by submerging themselves underwater for hours. The fire moved with terrifying speed. In some places, it crossed miles of forest in mere minutes, leaving nothing but ash and scorched earth behind. In comparison, the Great Chicago Fire was a disaster of urban destruction, but the scale and loss of life paled next to Peshtigo. Chicago's tragedy became legend, immortalized in newspapers and public memory, while Peshtigo was left largely forgotten, its stories told only in whispers by those who survived. But the numbers speak for themselves. Peshtigo's death toll was 6 times higher than Chicago's, and the area burned was nearly 600 times more expansive. Why this disparity in attention? In the late 19th century, Chicago was a bustling metropolis, a hub of commerce and culture, while Peshtigo was a small logging town tucked away in the forests of Wisconsin. News coverage favored the city, and the narrative of Chicago's rebirth from ashes was easier to shape into a story of resilience and progress. The rural tragedy of Peshtigo did not fit the mold, yet the lessons it offers are profound, about nature's power, human vulnerability, and the unpredictable consequences of our actions. Let's look closer at the factors that turned a routine forest fire into an unprecedented disaster. The drought of 1871 was severe, leaving even riverbeds low and vegetation brittle. The practice of slash-and-burn agriculture, while common at the time, created a landscape littered with dry timber and brush, perfect fuel for any spark. When the winds arrived, they whipped embers into a frenzy, spreading the fire at a rate that made escape nearly impossible. Some experts believe the fire was so intense that it generated its own weather, with tornado-like vortices pulling flames and debris high into the air. The combination of environmental mismanagement and extreme weather created a perfect storm, a term now used to describe the convergence of factors that make disasters inevitable. The aftermath was staggering. Survivors described the land as unrecognizable, a vast expanse of charred stumps and smoldering ruins. Entire families were lost, their names wiped from census rolls and church records. The death toll, estimated at over 1,500, may in fact be higher, as many rural workers and Native Americans were never officially counted. The physical destruction was matched by psychological trauma. Those who lived through the fire carried its scars for the rest of their lives.
Modern historians and scientists have revisited the Peshtigo Fire in recent years, using satellite imagery, climate models, and forensic analysis to reconstruct its path and impact. What they find is startling. A burn scar that stretched from the shores of Green Bay to the interior forests, with some areas left barren for decades. The fire's heat was so intense that sand melted into glass, and metal farm tools fused together. The environmental impact was long-lasting. Rivers were clogged with ash, wildlife populations decimated, and soil fertility dramatically reduced. It took years for the forest to begin to recover, and for communities to rebuild. In light of recent wildfires, such as the massive Texas blaze in early 2024, one of the largest in U.S. history, the lessons of Peshtigo are more relevant than ever. Advances in fire science and emergency response have saved countless lives, but the growing risks posed by climate change, drought, and human encroachment on wilderness areas remind us that nature's power remains formidable. The Peshtigo Fire stands as a warning. When environmental stewardship is neglected, and when we underestimate the forces at play, tragedy can strike with little warning and immense force. But there is also a story of resilience. In the years following the fire, survivors rebuilt their homes and communities, often starting from nothing. The town of Peshtigo was eventually reconstructed, though its population never reached its pre-fire peak. Memorials and museums now stand where the fire once raged, telling the story to new generations. For those who visit, the experience is sobering. A reminder of how quickly life can change, and how important it is to remember the lessons of the past. The obscurity of the Peshtigo Fire in popular culture is an injustice to its victims and to history itself. By sharing its story, we not only honor those who suffered and survived, but also remind ourselves of the ongoing need for vigilance, preparedness, and respect for the environment. Wildfires are not simply natural disasters. They are shaped by human choices, weather patterns, and the landscapes we inhabit. The tragedy of Peshtigo reveals both the fragility and the resilience of communities in the face of unimaginable loss. If there is a takeaway from the Peshtigo Fire, it is this: knowledge of history empowers us to prevent future disasters. By studying the causes and consequences of the deadliest wildfire in American history, we gain insight into the importance of fire management, environmental conservation, and community preparedness. In an era when wildfires are growing more frequent and severe, these lessons are not just relevant, they are urgent. So let us remember the night the sky turned to fire over Wisconsin, the lives lost, and the land transformed. Let us learn from the past and ensure that the story of Peshtigo is not forgotten, but used to guide us toward a safer, more mindful future. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to follow the next videos.